I walked into the courtroom thinking today would end my divorce quietly, just signatures and silence. My husband sat smug, his lawyer smiling like they already owned my future. Then the judge asked for full disclosure, and my husband swore there was nothing to hide. I almost believed him, until my daughter squeezed my hand and whispered, "Mom." I found a file on his phone. My heart stopped. A hidden folder. A name I'd never seen. Messages, receipts, a recording, proof of an affair buried under lies. And right then, the bailiff called our case. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold coffee, like every heartbreak that had ever been stamped and filed. My heels clicked too loud on the marble floor, and I hated how that sound made me feel small, like everyone could hear how nervous I was. My daughter, Lila, walked beside me, holding my hand the way she used to when she was 5. She was 13 now, too old to be dragged into this. But my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, had insisted she be present for transparency. As if he cared about transparency. He cared about winning. Across the hallway, Ethan stood with his lawyer, Nolan Cross, a man with perfect hair and a smile that never touched his eyes. Ethan wore the same charcoal suit he'd worn to my father's funeral. The suit that said, "I'm composed. I'm innocent. I'm untouchable." His gaze flicked over me like I was an inconvenience. Then he looked at Lila and softened his face, just enough to perform fatherhood. "Hey, Peanut," he said, like he wasn't the one who'd turned our home into a war zone. "You okay?" Lila tightened her grip on my hand. "I'm fine." Ethan's smile faltered for half a second. He turned back to me, voice dropping low. "I told you, Mara. Let's keep this civil. Don't make a scene." A scene. As if I hadn't spent months swallowing scenes. Swallowing my questions. Swallowing the nights he came home smelling like someone else's perfume and explained it away as a client dinner. I met his eyes. "I'm not the one who dragged our daughter into a courtroom." His jaw flexed. Nolan stepped in, polite as poison. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "good to see you. Ready to resolve this like adults?" I wanted to laugh. Adults. Ethan had been acting like a teenager caught cheating, blaming everyone but himself. Before I could respond, my lawyer, Vanessa Park, appeared at my side. Vanessa was small, sharp, and fearless. A woman who spoke like every word was a blade she'd already chosen. "Mara," she said softly, then looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Hale." Ethan's expression turned flat. "Vanessa." Vanessa leaned closer to me. "Remember. You don't react. Let them talk. We respond with facts." Facts. That was the problem. Ethan was good at burying facts under polished lies. We entered the courtroom. The air changed instantly, thicker, quieter, heavy with other people's endings. A few strangers sat in the benches, waiting for their cases, but Ethan's presence still managed to fill the room like he owned it. He'd always been like that. Charming in public. Controlling in private. We took our seats. Lila sat between Vanessa and me, shoulders stiff, eyes wide but steady. I could tell she was trying to be brave for me, and it broke something inside my chest. The judge entered, an older woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Judge Harrington. Her face had the tired patience of someone who'd seen too many couples swear they were different. "Case number 24 to 117, the clerk announced. Hale versus Hale." My stomach dropped at the sound of our names separated by versus. Like we were enemies. Like love had never lived between us at all. Judge Harrington looked over her glasses. "Mrs. Hale. Mr. Hale. This is a divorce proceeding involving asset division and custody arrangements, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Vanessa said. "Yes," Nolan said at the same time. The judge's eyes shifted to Lila. "And you're their daughter?" Lila nodded once. Judge Harrington's voice softened. "I don't like minors in my courtroom unless necessary. But since you're here, I expect respectful behavior from both parties." Ethan gave a small, humble nod, like he was the victim of my unreasonable emotions. I could almost hear his voice in my head. "See? I'm calm. She's the unstable one." Nolan stood first. "Your Honor, Mr. Hale is requesting primary custody due to concerns regarding Mrs. Hale's emotional stability." He is also requesting that the marital home remain in his possession, as he has been the primary financial provider. My vision blurred for a second. Emotional stability. I felt Vanessa's hand press lightly against my wrist, an anchor. Judge Harrington's eyebrows lifted. What concerns? Nolan didn't even hesitate. Mrs. Hale has displayed erratic behavior. Excessive calls, public outbursts, and an inability to co-parent without hostility. We have documentation. Ethan kept his face composed, eyes down like he was ashamed to even say it. It was performance. He was good at performance. I leaned forward. That's not. Vanessa squeezed my wrist harder. I stopped. Judge Harrington glanced at Ethan. Mr. Hale, do you believe your wife is unfit? Ethan sighed, slow and dramatic. Your Honor, I didn't want it to come to this. But Lila needs stability. She needs peace. Peace. From me. Not from the nights he disappeared. Not from the way he gaslit me until I questioned my own reality. Lila's jaw tightened. I felt her trembling beside me like a storm trying not to break. Judge Harrington tapped a pen against her file. Mrs. Hale, what is your response? Vanessa stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Hale denies these claims. The so-called documentation is selective and misleading. Additionally, we are requesting full financial disclosure from Mr. Hale. There are inconsistencies in reported income and expenditures. Ethan's head snapped up, just a fraction. Nolan's smile stayed in place, but his eyes sharpened. Inconsistencies, Nolan said. Mr. Hale has disclosed everything required by law. Judge Harrington leaned back slightly. Mr. Hale, have you provided complete records? Bank statements, business accounts, relevant communications. Ethan looked directly at the judge. Yes, Your Honor. I have nothing to hide. Something about the way he said it, so smooth, so confident, made my stomach twist. Because I'd heard him say that before. The night I asked about the lipstick stain on his collar. The day I found a hotel key card in his pocket and he told me it belonged to a client. I stared at him now, searching his face for a crack. He gave me none. Judge Harrington turned pages. Mrs. Hale, I see you've requested an updated review of certain digital records. Why? Vanessa answered evenly. Because Mr. Hale's spending patterns don't match his disclosure. There are gaps. Nolan scoffed. This is a fishing expedition. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Cross, spare me. If there are gaps, I will address them. Ethan's fingers tapped his folder once. A small movement, but I noticed. Ethan only tapped when he was irritated. Judge Harrington looked between both tables. Here is what we will do. We will proceed with custody discussion, and I will order supplemental disclosure if warranted. Mr. Hale, you understand that full disclosure is not optional. It is the foundation of this court. Ethan nodded again. Of course, Your Honor. Then, under the table, his foot nudged mine, not gentle, not affectionate. A warning. Don't push. I swallowed the rage rising in my throat. Vanessa began to speak, outlining my role as Lila's primary caretaker, doctor visits, school meetings, bedtime routines, the actual life Ethan only visited on weekends. As she spoke, Nolan slid papers forward with highlighted sections, my text messages begging Ethan to come home, my voicemail recordings asking if he was safe, emails I'd sent at 2 in the morning when he didn't answer. They were presenting my fear as instability, my love as madness. And the worst part? Ethan glanced at Lila, then looked away like he couldn't bear to see her hurt, like he wasn't the one causing it. I felt Lila shift beside me. She stared at the documents on the table, then at her father, and something changed in her eyes. Not sadness. Not confusion. Recognition. As if a puzzle piece had clicked into place. She leaned toward me, her lips close to my ear. Mom, she whispered, voice barely audible, when Dad told me to charge his phone last night. I saw something. My heart stuttered. Lila. I didn't mean to, she whispered faster, eyes still forward. But a notification popped up. A name. I opened his files. My whole body went cold. What did you see? Lila's hand trembled as she slid something into my palm under the table. A tiny USB drive. Black. Plain. Like it could hold anything. or destroy everything. Her voice was a breath. There's a hidden folder. And there's proof. I stared down at the USB, my fingers closing around it like it was a live wire. Across the room, Ethan was still speaking calmly, still pretending to be the better parent, still trying to take my life apart in front of our child. And he had no idea. Because in my daughter's quiet hands, the truth had already slipped out of his control. The clerk's voice rang out. All rise. Judge Harrington adjusted her glasses again, eyes scanning the room. And Ethan, smug and confident, said once more, loud enough for the court to hear. I have nothing to hide. I clenched the USB so hard it hurt. Because 10 minutes from now, he was going to learn what my daughter had found. The judge called for a short recess. Chairs scraped. Lawyers whispered. Papers shuffled like nervous birds. But all I could hear was the thud of my own heartbeat and the weight of the tiny USB drive burning in my palm. Vanessa leaned close. What is it? I opened my hand just enough for her to see. Her eyes sharpened instantly. Where did you get that? I glanced at Lila. She sat rigid, staring straight ahead, as if afraid one wrong move would make the world collapse. She found it, I whispered. On Ethan's phone. Hidden folder. Vanessa's expression shifted from curiosity to calculation. Do you know what's on it? Lila swallowed. Messages, receipts, voice notes. A woman saved as Client A. But the texts weren't business. Her voice cracked. They were personal. My lungs forgot how to work. Vanessa exhaled slowly, mind already racing. If this is authentic, this changes everything. Financial deception, potential marital misconduct, possibly misuse of marital funds. She looked at me serious. But we must handle this carefully. If it's obtained improperly, they'll try to exclude it. Across the room, Ethan laughed softly at something Nolan said. The sound sliced through me. He looked relaxed. Untouchable. Like this entire process was just a minor inconvenience before he returned to his perfect life. He caught my eye and gave a small, patronizing smile. That smile used to melt me. Today, it made my skin crawl. Mom, Lila whispered suddenly, voice trembling, there's also a recording. He was talking about you. My stomach dropped. What did he say? She hesitated. That you were too emotional to win custody, and that if you pushed the affair issue, he'd make sure you looked unstable in court. The room tilted for a second. So it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. A plan to paint me as hysterical while he erased his own lies. Vanessa's jaw tightened. We're using it, she said quietly. But first, we verify. Recess ended too quickly. The bailiff called everyone back to their seats, and the air snapped back into suffocating formality. Judge Harrington returned, settling into her chair. We will continue. Mr. Cross, you were addressing custody arrangements. Nolan rose smoothly. Yes, Your Honor. Given Mrs. Hale's emotional volatility and the child's need for structure, we propose primary residency with Mr. Hale. Volatility. Again. I felt Lila flinch beside me. Vanessa stood. Your Honor, before we proceed, we request permission to introduce newly discovered digital evidence relevant to both custody and financial disclosure. Nolan frowned. On what basis? We have completed discovery. Vanessa's voice stayed calm, razor-sharp. The evidence came to light this morning. It may indicate undisclosed financial transfers and personal misconduct that directly impact the credibility of Mr. Hale's testimony. The courtroom stirred. Even the clerk looked up. Ethan's confident posture stiffened. Just slightly. But I saw it. Judge Harrington's gaze sharpened. Mr. Hale, have you engaged in any conduct or financial activity not previously disclosed to this court? Ethan didn't hesitate. No, Your Honor. The lie landed so smoothly it almost sounded like truth. Vanessa held up the USB drive. With the court's permission, we request to review this file under supervision. Nolan stepped forward immediately. Objection. Chain of custody is unclear. This could be fabricated. My pulse roared in my ears. If they blocked it now. Judge Harrington raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. The court will review the contents privately first. If admissible, We will proceed accordingly. She gestured to the clerk. Connect this to the court system. My breath caught as the USB left my hand. It felt like surrendering the last piece of my heart. The clerk plugged it in. A folder appeared on the screen labeled, Personal, Do Not Open. A murmur rippled through the room. Judge Harrington's eyebrow arched. Interesting. She clicked. The first file opened, text messages. A conversation thread filled the monitor, dates, times, hearts, hotel bookings, late-night confessions. Client A, miss you already. Same hotel next week? Red heart. Ethan, only if she believes I'm on a business trip again. The courtroom went dead silent. My vision blurred, but I forced myself to look. To see every word. Every lie I'd been told reflected back at me in cold digital proof. Nolan's confident smile vanished. Judge Harrington scrolled further. Bank transfers appeared next, large amounts routed to unfamiliar accounts, labeled as consulting expenses. Vanessa leaned toward me, whispering, "Those funds are marital assets." He diverted them. My chest tightened with a mix of rage and vindication. Then the judge clicked the audio file. Ethan's voice filled the courtroom, unmistakable. She's too emotional. If she brings up the affair, I'll say she's paranoid. Judges hate drama. I'll look calm, reasonable. Custody will go to me. It's simple strategy. The words echoed off the walls like a verdict before the verdict. Lila's fingers curled into my sleeve. I could feel her shaking now, silent tears sliding down her face. Across the room, Ethan had gone pale. Completely, devastatingly pale. Your Honor, Nolan said quickly, voice tight, this recording may be taken out of context. Out of context? Judge Harrington's tone turned ice cold. Mr. Hale's own voice outlining a plan to manipulate custody proceedings? Ethan finally spoke, stumbling. I didn't mean, it was just frustration, not. Silence, the judge snapped. The room held its breath. She removed her glasses slowly, eyes locking onto Ethan with a disappointment that felt heavier than anger. You told this court you had nothing to hide. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in years, he looked exactly like what he was, a man caught. I felt something inside me shift. Not triumph. Not yet. But balance. As if the ground beneath me, cracked for months, was finally starting to steady. Judge Harrington turned to Vanessa. Counsel, based on this preliminary review, the court will allow this evidence into consideration pending full authentication. We will also be reopening financial disclosure. A wave of whispers filled the benches. Nolan sat down hard, whispering furiously to Ethan, who stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, pride collapsing piece by piece. I leaned toward Lila, brushing her hair back gently. You were brave, I whispered. She sniffed. I didn't want him to hurt you anymore. My throat tightened. He won't. Across the aisle, Ethan finally looked at me again, but the smugness was gone. In its place was something raw. Panic. Fear. The judge tapped her gavel once. We will proceed to further examination after a brief pause. Mr. Hale, I strongly advise you to reconsider your prior statements to this court. As the gavel echoed, I realized something profound. For months, he'd controlled the narrative. Today, the truth had entered the record. And it wasn't leaving. When court resumed, the air felt different. Heavier. Charged. Like everyone in the room knew something irreversible had just happened. Ethan no longer looked untouchable. His shoulders were rigid, jaw tight, fingers gripping the table as if he could still control the outcome through sheer will. Nolan whispered urgently beside him, flipping through papers that suddenly seemed useless. Judge Harrington's voice cut through the silence. Mr. Hale, you may respond to the evidence presented. Ethan stood slowly. For the first time in years, he didn't look confident. He looked cornered. Your Honor, he began, voice strained, the messages are private. They don't affect my ability to be a good father. My personal life shouldn't. They affect your credibility, the judge interrupted sharply. And your financial disclosures. You diverted marital funds to sustain this relationship while presenting yourself as the more stable parent. A murmur rippled across the benches. Ethan swallowed. I made mistakes. but Mara has been emotionally unstable for months. That's enough. The gavel struck once, echoing like thunder. I felt Vanessa's hand brush my elbow. Stand, she whispered. My legs trembled as I rose. Every eye in the courtroom shifted toward me. For months I'd been painted as the hysterical wife, the emotional liability, the one who would make a scene. But now I felt strangely calm. Your Honor, Vanessa said clearly, Mrs. Hale has been the primary caregiver since birth. Medical records, school communications, and daily logs confirm this. Mr. Hale's own recording reveals a calculated effort to manipulate this court by weaponizing her emotional distress caused directly by his infidelity and deception. She paused, letting the words sink in. This is not instability. This is a betrayed spouse fighting for her child and her truth. My chest tightened. Tears burned, but I didn't let them fall. Judge Harrington studied me closely. Mrs. Hale, she said, voice softer but firm, do you wish to address the court directly? I nodded. I stepped forward, palms damp, heart pounding so loud I wondered if the microphone would pick it up. I loved him, I said simply, my voice steady despite everything. For 15 years, I believed every late meeting, every business trip, every excuse. When things felt wrong, I blamed myself. I thought I was too sensitive, too emotional. I inhaled slowly. But loving your husband and wanting honesty doesn't make you unstable. It makes you human. I glanced at Ethan. His eyes dropped. I didn't come here to humiliate him, I continued. I came to protect my daughter and keep the life we built from being rewritten as if I was the problem. He didn't just cheat on me. He planned to erase me. The courtroom was silent enough to hear breathing. I may cry, I added quietly. I may feel deeply. But I show up. Every school play. Every doctor's appointment. Every nightmare she wakes from. I am her stability. Lila squeezed my hand from behind. That tiny pressure gave me strength I didn't know I still had. Judge Harrington exhaled slowly, then turned to Ethan. Mr. Hale, this court does not punish infidelity. But it does not reward dishonesty, financial concealment, or manipulation of custody proceedings. Ethan's composure cracked. I just wanted fairness. Fairness? The judge repeated, disbelief sharp in her tone. You attempted to construct a narrative of instability while maintaining a secret relationship funded by marital assets and planning to use that narrative to secure custody. That is not fairness. That is strategy at the expense of truth. Nolan closed his eyes briefly, knowing the tide had fully turned. The judge picked up her notes. Here is the court's ruling. My breath stopped. Primary physical custody will remain with Mrs. Hale. Mr. Hale will receive structured visitation contingent on completion of parenting and counseling requirements. She looked directly at him. Additionally, the court orders a full forensic review of financial records. Any diverted marital funds will be subject to reimbursement and potential penalties. Ethan sagged slightly, like something inside him had finally given way. The gavel struck again. It is also the opinion of this court that Mrs. Hale's emotional responses are proportionate to the circumstances she endured. They do not constitute parental unfitness. The words hit me like sunlight after months of darkness. Proportionate. Not crazy. Not unstable. Human. Lila burst into quiet tears behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. I held her tightly, feeling her heartbeat against mine, finally steadying. Across the aisle, Ethan looked smaller. Not powerful. Not composed. Just exposed. Vanessa leaned in with a small smile. Justice doesn't always shout, she whispered. Sometimes it just records everything and lets the truth speak. Outside the courtroom, the afternoon light felt softer than I remembered. Lila slipped her hand into mine, and we walked down the courthouse steps together, no longer as victims of his narrative, but as survivors of it. At the bottom of the stairs, Vanessa's friend, Dr. Adrian Cole, who had quietly supported me through months of therapy and legal stress, waited with 2 cups of coffee and a warm, reassuring smile. You did it, he said gently. Both of you. I laughed weakly, tears finally falling, but they felt lighter now. We did. Lila looked up at me. Are we going to be okay? I kissed her forehead. Better than okay. Behind us, the courthouse doors closed, sealing the chapter of lies and fear. Ahead, the street buzzed with life, unpredictable but open. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something we could finally choose.